Okay, the next step in our assembly process is the head. And we have two different size studs. Actually, we have only two of the super long ones and the rest of them the short ones. The long ones go here because the neck that goes to the radiator sits up here on top of the head. So I'm going to take just a little bit of sealant and put on these coarse threads that are going to go in here. This one and this one go here, the long ones go here, and that's what I'm going to do. And then I'll finish it up here. So let me do just one of them here just to give you an idea of what I'm doing. And I don't think you need a whole lot on here. Probably a little too much. And then we'll put the rest of them in here and put on the gasket and then the head itself. That's sliding in pretty well, or screwing in pretty easily, I should say, which kind of tells me that this block is nice and clean in those threads. Look at that. That's just sliding right in there. Pretty easy. Okay, so I'm going to turn off the camera now and I'll finish out the rest of these and be right back at you. Okay, so the studs are in. And I wanted to point out that in the instructions that came from Antique Engine Repair, they said to use a little bit of sealant on these studs, and I put way too much. I had a big mess here. All of the sealant came up the threads, and it took me a long time to get everything cleaned off, so that was a big waste of time. So follow the instructions and you won't have that problem. Okay, so the next thing is in the edition 5 or volume 5, it's a great article on adjusting cylinder heads in here from Murray Feinstock and the bolt pattern and whatnot for the sequencing. He says do 25 pounds the first time around and then 50 pounds after that. However, Antique Engine Repair says do 60. And so as to not void the warranty, we're going to be doing 25 the first time. Actually, I'll do 30 the first time and then 60 to finish it up. So this all looks pretty good. Get that out of there. All of this looks pretty good. Here's our head gasket. And you'll notice the two sides are similar, but there are differences. Anyway, I've been told that the labeling goes up first. So we'll put this down in here like so. That looks pretty good. That's pretty easy, huh? And then the only other thing to go on here is the head. So let's get that. So here's our refurbished head, all nicely machined, painted, ready to go. There is no silicone or sealant that goes on the gasket. So this just goes on like that. Pretty simple. One thing to point out, this number 8 stud right here is a little bit longer than the rest, definitely shorter than these, but this is for the ignition cable clamp. So they've extended a little bit to accommodate the clip the clip, not a clamp, but a clip that goes, it goes right here, and the cable goes through the firewall up to the dash. So that's the number 8. All right, looking pretty good here. And of course, we have 2 sides to these nuts. There's the washer side, the flat side. Can you see that maybe? And then there's the top side. And so we want this side down to the head. There are no washers. This goes right to the head. So now we're going to torque this whole thing down, and we're going to start with 30 pounds first. In the book here is a specific sequence, 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. So I'm looking at that on a table right next to me, so I get this right. So we start with number 1, number 2. Okay, so that's 30 pounds. Now we're going up to 60. Okay, that takes care of the head. We'll probably put the distributor in after the engine is back in the car because of using the spark plug holders for lift. I don't want to do any damage there. I might put the oil return pipe back on it. The bolts that I had put on for the front valve cover, I've got to paint. I see some touch up here, touch up there. Yeah, how about that? We got this thing all done, and it's getting closer to putting in. So now what I'm going to do is take the motor off the engine stand, and I'm going to put it onto this dolly right here that you can see. I made this dolly specifically for the engine so I can move it around because it's going to be a while before I put it back in the car, number 1. Number 2, it will be up so that I can put the flywheel on, the clutch, and put all the back end stuff onto the motor. You can't do it on the engine stand. It's got to be on the ground, and this was the best way to do it, was build this little dolly. So that's the next step. Here are these hoists that I used before that seem to work pretty well. And we're going to just screw that into the spark plug holder like that and tighten it down a little bit. Let's see what we got here. There we go. And screw that down. There we go. That's pretty good. And this one goes in the back hole. I was a little bit apprehensive about using the threads on the spark plugs to lift this whole motor. Had a number of people online say that it worked fine. So I bought this, I don't remember where I got it, which supply house. And it sure seemed to do the job. I like it better than the idea of having to get take off a nut, 2 nuts or whatever for like an L bracket or something to go on here to hold that up. So this works just fine and dandy. Okay, there we go. There's our engine. Our short block is now a long block for the most part. Let's get it onto the dolly. Well, there you have it. I got the head on and looking pretty good. Next up is putting all the clutch assembly back here, which I'll do. And the exhaust and intakes, the generator / alternator will go on when it's in the car. I may put on the water pump before that, but it's looking pretty good. Now I get to introduce you to somebody that knows a thing or two about Model A engines. Mr. Henry Ford joins us. Thank you for taking the time to give me some feedback on putting this engine together, Mr. Ford. What do you think?
Thanks for having me. Overall, I think you did a great job. Of course, only time will tell if it runs, but I didn't see anything that would suggest otherwise. Did you leave any screws in the bottom of the oil pan? Just be sure to put oil in that thing.
That's great to hear. No screws in the bottom, that's for sure. What do you think? What's going on with the electric cars nowadays? What do you think about that?
What's the big deal? My Model A's are electric cars. Just put it in gear, don't turn on the ignition key, and push on the starter switch on the floor. You'll be driving forward by only electricity.
Okay. I'll remember that next time.
I'm amazed at how many people still drive Model Ts and Model A's after all these years. That's very exciting to see. By the way, I saw that little gadget you put in the timing gear cover. Great idea. I should have thought about that years ago.
Yeah, that little thing works pretty well, that's for sure. Mr. Ford, thank you so much for being here today and your thoughts on assembling this engine. I really appreciate your input. And of course, I'll be making more videos as we progress through the restoration of this 1930 Ford Model A 4-door. So if you want to get more videos, hopefully I can have Mr. Ford come back as well. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And of course, don't forget to check out modelatshirts.com. Really cool stuff on that website. Okay, thanks for watching.
You like my horn?